How's it going? Welcome to No Fun Allowed, and today I'm going to be reviewing and overviewing Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, a 5th edition module. This adventure has a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and the highs are great, but the lows bog it down. This adventure has a lot of great things going on for it, but unfortunately there's some things holding it back, and I wanted to address those as well as give my overall impressions. There is going to be a ton of spoilers, so players that plan on playing in this module do not watch this, but DMs that have even an inkling of running this, go ahead and stick around because I'm going to be covering the whole thing, and I will be going over how to make it a much more palatable adventure later on. But before I move on with the rest of the video, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to all my patrons over on Patreon. They are supporting me in all my creative endeavors. If you support me on Patreon, you'll get maps, magical items, subclasses, adventures, and so much more. So if you want to help me and support my creative endeavors, then feel free to check that out. Description down below. So, Baldur's Gate. What is going on with this adventure? Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus is about your player starting off in Baldur's Gate and eventually them descending down into Avernus. Pretty simple, right? But why are they doing that? That is because a city that is located nearby to Baldur's Gate, El has been dragged down to hell, and your players are having to deal with the ramifications of that, and then eventually they must go down into Avernus to eventually try and save the city. And right there, that is so compelling, right? Your players have to go down to hell to save untold scores of innocent people and a whole city that has been dragged down to hell. That's great. The premise is fantastic. The issue with this adventure overall as a whole is that Baldur's Gate is tacked on to this adventure for seemingly no reason. Now, Baldur's Gate itself, there's a reason why I know that they put that in here. It's because Baldur's Gate is very synonymous with the D&D brand. Baldur's Gate, the video game, is one of the most famousest video games ever of all time. And it's in fact actually regarded in the top 100 of best games ever for a lot of lists. Baldur's Gate games are synonymous with success, and that is probably why they chose to label this adventure Baldur's Gate Descent to Avernus. 256 pages right here in this book. 256. And 90 of the pages are dedicated to Baldur's Gate. But the unfortunate part is, the Baldur's Gate portion of this adventure is just out of place. It doesn't feel tangible, it doesn't feel good, and it just doesn't pertain to the rest of the adventure. The real grabbing part of this adventure is going to hell. The real draw of this adventure is being dragged down into Avernus. And yet, 90 of the 256 pages have been allotted to part of the adventure that really doesn't add too much to the adventure. I will be making videos on how to restructure the entire campaign in my adventure module guide series that I do on this adventure. But that's for later. Right now I'm reviewing it purely wholesale. So in Chapter 1, we get A Tale of Two Cities, and this is the start of the campaign. Your players find themselves in Baldur's Gate for a number of reasons, which actually are pretty fun, detailed out. We get some ideas on getting some player character secrets, or they're all in on some sort of deal and now they're in Baldur's Gate and they've got to deal with the problems that are going on in Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate has a lot of things going wrong with it at all times because it's a fun adventuring city. There is a tyrannical faction that is running around the place. There is cults. There is a refugee crisis. There's a whole bunch of things that are intriguing, and right there, that is the annoying part, is that there's a bunch of unique things going on in Baldur's Gate, but they have next to nothing going on with the actual adventure. They feel almost like just separated. And also, far more importantly, is it drags on for a pretty long time. If you're to run Baldur's Gate portion purely as written, it's going to take a lot of sessions to get through, and it's going to take a long time before you get to the real meat of the adventure, which is Avernus, which I imagine if you pitch this adventure right here, you say, hey gang, do you guys want to descend into Avernus? And it takes, however many sessions to get there. That's going to not feel as great. Kind of just want to start off with the action. And also very importantly, is there is a famous portion of this adventure where your players are level 2 and they go up against a mage that can cast Fireball. For those of you that know the math on Fireball, Fireball automatically kills PCs at level 2. So, that's another thing going on. Eventually, your players will get the clues that they need, and they will go to Candlekeep, and right then and there, they will descend into Avernus. Specifically, they're going to go to El Turel being the city that's being dragged down. So in Chapter 2, our players find themselves in El Terrell, and they've got to deal with all the terrible things going on with a town that is being dragged down into hell. There's undead everywhere, there's demons, there's devils, oh my. Your players have to deal with all the ramifications, try to help people out, and eventually they got to realize that they got to get off this thing and go down into Avernus itself. Chapter 2's got a lot of fun things going on with it. That's really where the adventure is really spicing up, because your players are now in a foreign place and they just got to deal with a whole bunch of crazy nonsense. And it's finally in Chapter 3 is where we get to the real crux of this adventure, Avernus. Chapter 3 is the biggest of all these chapters, as it deals with all of the named-sake locations of Avernus, as well as a whole bunch of details that you'll need to traverse this place. Avernus is not hospitable to humanoids, go figure. This place is made for devils, by devils, and it just sucks to be here. But that's the great part about it. Your players are just going up against adversity time and time and time again, and yet they'll be able to conquer it if they are able to navigate deals with devils and make alliances and just show off their awesome might. Now, once your players find themselves on the layer of Avernus, that is where they're going to try to pick up a bunch of clues, rumors, and follow quests to figure out how the heck they're going to deal with El Terrell being dragged down and what is truly going on here. First things first, there is a major war going on between the devils and the demons. The demons are invading, the devils are trying to repel them, and just life sucks all around. Your players are going to get themselves involved in this, as well as a whole bunch of other factions along the side. Now, the book lays out two paths that your players will probably be going down. The path of devils and the path of demons. Your players will be dealing with a whole bunch of named NPCs and going to a whole bunch of fun locations, and they'll be trying to figure out how they can get more powerful and where they'll need to go next. Now, for as open as Avernus is, you see that map right there, it's massive and big. But then for the book to basically just lay down, hey, your players are either going to go down the path of devils or path of demons, it seems very limiting. But I think the best way to handle that is to just not let them know that there is a path of devils or path of demons. I think the best way to go about approaching that is to simply let them go where they want to go. And if they advance multiple different plot lines, then so be it. The major thing your players are going to discover is that there is a fallen angel, now turned devil ruler of Avernus, named Zariel. And Zariel is the leader of all the devils around here, and she's probably going to be the one that is going to enact any sort of change or rule to anything that is going on around here. And that is where this adventure truly shines, because it may seem a little bit limited from those two tracks there, but ultimately what's really going on in the background is your players are forging alliances, or far more importantly, maybe they're making enemies of a whole bunch of devils, and that is going to make the outcome truly unique every single time you run this adventure. Sometimes you'll run this and your players are just going to throw Avernus into chaos, and sometimes your players are going to run this adventure and try and make this place tip-top shape and good to go. Once your players have uncovered enough clues and hints and rumors about where they can find the sword of Zariel, the sword that she held when she was an angel, your players can go there and retrieve it, and when they do, whoever wields it becomes awesome and ultimate and badass and a holy symbol of righteousness, and then there you're faced with even more ultimate choices of what are you going to do. Are you going to try and slay all the devils? Are you going to try and slay all the demons? Are you going to try and put some devil in charge? One of the great aspects of the whole thing here is once you finally get to Chapter 5, Escaping Avernus, how does that endgame play out? That endgame is going to be so vastly different depending on your player's actions. And these might be small actions they didn't even think of because they maybe helped a devil and they didn't even know it, or they may be large and bombastic as your players have absolutely made an enemy of some devils and allied with others, and it's going to be awesome. One great aspect of this ending is your players can try and redeem Zariel. If they get that sword and sweet talker, then there is a chance that your players can actually make Zariel good again and have a devil be put back in charge of Avernus. Once again, just so many great things going on with this ending. So only 5 chapters go into the whole adventure here, and quite frankly, you don't need that much because Chapter 3 is this sandboxy / railroady experience, but all the other ones are definitely more railroaded experiences where your players are going in one direction or another, but choosing the A, B, or C junctions. But the real thing is that ending. That ending is so so much going on. You have to keep track of so much going on, and that's a great thing because your players are going to feel like their actions truly had consequences and weight to them. By that ending, your players will know that even though they started off as just, people, they were able to shape the entirety of Avernus. That right there is such a great reward, such a great feeling that your players were able to change hell itself. Now going beyond just the story beats of this adventure, we're also given a bunch of fun details on deals with devils. Your players can make deals with devils where they sign contracts and they can use that to their own advantage. They can get some sort of boons and hopefully it doesn't come to bite them later on. Another great aspect of this adventure is your players aren't going to be walking around Avernus. No, that's pedestrian. Your players are going to ride on infernal war machines, these massive Mad Max-like vehicles where they roam around the vast emptiness and fire that is Avernus, and it is going to be totally rad and wicked. You can get into fights with them, you can get into chases with them, you can do all sorts of things. But the real wicked part of these infernal war machines is that they are powered by soul coins. Soul coins being the absolute soul and essence of a person who had signed their soul away. And one could view that as an incredibly horrible act to use these soul coins, because once you use them, that person's soul is snuffed out from existence. So you're effectively, truly killing people. It's pretty metal, it's pretty hardcore, and I know not every group is going to be down for that. But, this adventure itself really does lean into questioning your integrity, questioning your semblance of who you really are. I know that alignment isn't that popular these days, and take that what you will, but alignment definitely has a purpose here in regards of there is definitely lawful evil characters and there is chaotic evil characters going on here. Where do your players fit in the mix? Are they going to try and be good? Are they going to try and be evil? Are they going to be trying to be neutral? Are they going to be good, bad? What are they going to be? Are they going to be lawful? That's the real question of this adventure. This adventure, whether you use alignment or not, is going to test those themes, and I really dig that. Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus is certainly a unique adventure on the 5e module lineup, as it is the only one dealing with you actually going to hell, and it is absolutely devils first and foremost as the main antagonist and also allies in this whole adventure. There's so many great things going on, especially once your players get to Avernus here, because there's just so much going on. And just even beyond those places that they're recommended to go, there's a whole bunch of optional places that they can go as well. And there's a whole bunch of optional NPCs they get to interact with. And those are really what makes this adventure come to life, is just interacting with people, and it feels organic. Everybody in Avernus wants something. And guess what? Your players want something too. The NPCs aren't just standing around saying, oh, we'll definitely do this for you. No. There's a give and take. There's a back and forth. Your players are movers and goers in this world, and they can get things done. The devils can do things as well, but they'll help the party as long as the party is willing to help them. I really like that give and take. It feels natural, feels, absolutely real. I love it. So all in all, how do I feel about Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus? I think it is a pretty good adventure in regards of you've got a whole bunch of great NPCs to work with. You've got this sprawling hell to explore. But the things to really consider is I think that the first portion of the adventure, which is a decent chunk of it, just kind of bogs down, doesn't do too much. I also think that the dungeon portions of this adventure are a little bit not great. Dungeon exploration in hell in particular just doesn't get good. There's actually some decent-ish dungeons in the Baldur's Gate portion of the adventure, but once again, they just feel so disconnected from the main point of this whole adventure. I think if you just covered up the whole Baldur's Gate portion of this adventure and just ran Descent into Avernus, I think it's a great time. I think it's fantastic. But once again, just 90 of the 256 pages of this book were dedicated to Baldur's Gate. I think that was just far too much. I think that was just completely unnecessary. They should have made a Descent into Avernus adventure, and they should have made a Baldur's Gate adventure. Baldur's Gate adventure could have been great. So if you're looking for an adventure where your player's making deals with devils and shaping up the whole of hell, then definitely check this out. So what are your thoughts on Descent into Avernus? Have you ran it already? Have you not ran it already? Are you looking forward to me making a module guide series on running this book? Has this adventure stoked in you the fires of hell to throw at your players? Go ahead and tell me those things because I would love to hear it. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening. And thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.